My mother once pinned me to the floor while my father negotiated my marriage to a violent older man. I escaped and exposed everything. Now, years later, she's ill and pleading for me to return, because family is family. In my household, a girl's childhood ended the moment she got her first period. It didn't matter if she was 12, 13, or 14. Blood meant she was ready to be handed over to a man, often 3 times her age. I grew up believing this was normal until I was 11. That was the year my cousin Sophia was promised to a 43-year-old man just 3 days after her first cycle began. His 2 previous wives had both died before turning 20. That night, I made a decision that would shape my survival. I stopped eating properly. Not because I hated food or thought I was overweight, but because I noticed something important. The thinner girls in my family were the last to menstruate. Delaying puberty felt like my only protection. I later learned the body needs a certain amount of fat to begin puberty, but back then, all I knew was that starving myself bought time. The other girls mocked me, calling me names. I didn't care. Girls my age were already promised to men with children older than them. Even so, my training as a future wife never stopped. Every Friday, from 1 a.m. until late morning, I served meals to male relatives in silence. If I spoke, made eye contact, or dropped something, I was beaten with a belt. I was forced to hold scorching pots with bare hands to harden them for housework. Every night, my mother rubbed skin-lightening cream into my face so I would be presentable. Aside from secretly starving myself, I was obedient. I never complained. I smiled. I spoke eagerly about motherhood. I played my role perfectly. When I was 14, still without a period, something changed everything. We were living in the United States, though my parents convinced us that what happened in our home was normal everywhere. They said girls who refused would die alone, ugly and worthless. Until one teacher noticed how thin I was after I accidentally wore a short-sleeve shirt. She demanded a private meeting. When she stepped out briefly, she forgot to lock her drawer. Inside were pamphlets and books about marriage laws, teen rights, and what happens when culture becomes abuse. I was stunned. For the first time, I learned that child marriage was illegal. No cultural excuse. No parental permission. No loopholes. I stole a small pamphlet and hid it in my clothes. Over the next weeks, I memorized everything. Hotlines, shelters, legal language that triggered mandatory reports. I learned that teachers, counselors, and doctors were legally required to report suspected abuse. I started a secret skills group in my uncle's shed. 6 younger cousins met with me there, girls who hadn't reached puberty yet and were desperate to avoid their futures. I taught them which adults were mandated reporters. I taught them the exact phrases to say. We practiced in whispers. They're forcing me to marry. I'm 13. Please help me. Then, at 15, my body betrayed me. The blood came during morning chores, soaking through my dress. My mother's joyful scream summoned every woman in the house. They hugged me, kissed me, congratulated me. By nightfall, my father had chosen my future husband, Khalid Rahman, a wealthy contractor whose wives all died young. Officially, kidney failure. The women whispered it was from too many pregnancies, too early. 2 days later, my cousin Lena, one of the girls from the shed, got her period. Within hours, she was promised to a man in his 50s who collected wives like status symbols. He had children older than she was. I watched her go hollow as they discussed her bride price like livestock. That night, I handed her my notebook, filled with shelter numbers, laws, escape plans. Tomorrow, I whispered. Tell your science teacher. Say the words exactly. Her hands trembled. What about you? She asked. My wedding isn't for 2 weeks, I said. I'll figure something out. I was wrong. That same night, there was a knock at the door. Child Protective Services. They asked about Lena, about underage marriages, about forced unions. They wanted to speak with every girl in the house under 18. When they left, the family turned feral. Someone had poisoned the girls with foreign ideas. Someone had taught them lies. They searched everywhere. My notebook was found in the shed within an hour, filled with laws, numbers, proof. My father burned it in front of everyone, calling me diseased, corrupted, a cancer that needed to be removed. The wedding is tomorrow, he declared, before she destroys anyone else. Morning arrived too quickly. Within the hour, they would dress me in crimson and gold and hand me over to a man who had already buried 2 young wives. My stomach twisted as footsteps stopped outside my door. I grabbed the plastic bag I'd hidden days earlier. Inside were the bare essentials, a change of clothes, shelter locations I'd memorized and rewritten, and $20 I'd taken from my mother's purse over time, $1 at a time. The door handle moved. I clutched my abdomen and bent over, letting out a groan that was only half an act. My mother stepped in, already dressed in her finest outfit for the ceremony. Get up, she said sharply. The beautician will be here in 30 minutes. I groaned louder. Mama, something's wrong. My stomach. She frowned and approached carefully. In our world, a sick bride was a terrible sign. What did you eat? Nothing. I gasped, staggering toward the hallway. I need the bathroom. Now. She grabbed my arm. You went 20 minutes ago. Please, I begged, tears spilling freely. Fear made them easy. She recoiled in disgust. 5 minutes. The women are waiting. I hurried down the hall, the bag hidden beneath my loose nightgown. Once inside the bathroom, I locked the door and climbed onto the toilet. The ceiling panel I'd loosened weeks earlier shifted easily. I pushed the bag inside the space above, then actually used the toilet to make everything believable. Minutes passed. I flushed, ran the sink, then groaned again, louder this time. I can't stop, I cried. It hurts. Her fist slammed against the door. Open this door. I can't, I said, climbing back onto the toilet. The small window above it had been painted shut years ago, but I'd been working at it with a stolen butter knife. Just one more minute. More pounding. More voices. My aunt had joined her. I shoved against the window frame with all my strength. The pane cracked, then gave way. Cool morning air rushed in. The opening was barely meant for ventilation, not escape, but months of starvation had made me small enough. She's taking too long, my father's voice thundered. Break it down. I pulled the bag from the ceiling and shoved it through the window first. Then I hoisted myself up, scraping my shoulders against the frame. The door shook violently as bodies slammed into it. My hip stuck. I bit my tongue hard to keep from screaming and twisted sideways. The lock splintered just as my legs cleared the opening. I dropped onto wet grass 6 feet below, twisting my ankle, but it held. Shouts exploded behind me. I ran. Bare feet. Nightgown flying. I sprinted through the backyard and into the neighboring properties as dogs barked and motion lights snapped on. This neighborhood was filled with families like mine. Any one of them would drag me back without hesitation. I cut through the Ramon's yard, past the Khalil's pool, around the Yusuf shed. A car engine roared to life behind me. Then another. They were already searching. I ducked behind trash bins as headlights swept past. Tick every street, my cousin Nabil shouted. She couldn't have gone far. The main road was 3 blocks away. The bus stop 4. I'd memorized this route 100 times, but never barefoot. Never with my heart pounding, so hard it felt like it might burst. I weaved between houses, hiding behind parked cars. Blood smeared the pavement beneath my feet. Glass lodged into my heel, but I didn't slow down. There, someone yelled. A car screeched nearby. I dove into Mrs. Lynn's rose bushes, thorns ripping into my skin and dress. She wasn't part of our community. Maybe she wouldn't recognize me. I limped through her yard and into the alley beyond. The bus stop came into view just as the morning bus pulled up. I burst out from between buildings, waving desperately. The driver, an older black woman, took one look at my torn nightgown and bleeding feet and kept the doors open. I climbed aboard, then froze. No money. In the chaos, I'd left the cash in the bag. Please, I whispered. I just need to get downtown. I'll pay you back. An elderly woman stood from the front seat and fed exact change into the machine. Sit down, baby, she said gently. She didn't ask questions. Just guided me into the seat beside her and handed me tissues. The bus pulled away just as my cousin's car skidded into the lot. I ducked low, catching one last glimpse of his face twisted with fury. The woman shifted slightly, blocking the view. We rode in silence. When she got off downtown, she pressed $10 into my hand. Whatever you're running from, she whispered. Don't ever go back. The courthouse was enormous, something I'd only ever seen through car windows. I limped through the metal detectors, leaving faint streaks of blood across the polished marble floor. The security guards noticed, exchanged looks, but let me pass. At the family court desk, a middle-aged clerk with gentle eyes took one look at me and immediately stepped out from behind the counter. Sweetheart, do you need medical help? Emergency protective order. I gasped, forcing out the words I drilled into memory. I'm 15. They're forcing me into marriage. Today. She didn't hesitate. She guided me to a chair and slid paperwork across the desk. Where are you staying? We need an address. I recited the shelter's location from memory, silently praying they'd have space when I arrived. My phone, forgotten in my bag, started vibrating nonstop. My mother. My father. My cousin Rashid. Then unfamiliar numbers. I ignored them all. I already knew the messages waiting inside. Disgrace. Shame. Curse. Disease. The clerk helped me fill in every line, her expression growing darker with each detail. 2 wives dead before 25. 'Cause listed as kidney failure. Marriage scheduled for today. Wait here, she said, disappearing into an office. She returned with a judge, who read my request right there in the lobby. Granted, he said simply. Emergency order effective immediately. Full hearing in 2 weeks. I clutched the paper like it was oxygen and made my way back outside. The shelter was 12 blocks away. I managed 3 before remembering they might not even have room. The call confirmed it. We're full, the voice said apologetically. We can put you on a wait list for Thursday. Thursday. 3 days away. 3 days with nowhere to go. That's when I thought of Ms. Alvarez, my teacher. The one who'd show me those pamphlets. The one who'd forgotten to lock her drawer. Maybe it hadn't been an accident at all. After 3 buses and nearly 2 hours, I stood outside Lincoln High School. It was Saturday, so the building should have been empty, but her car sat in the lot. I knew she sometimes came in on weekends to grade in peace. I found her in her classroom, red pen in hand, essays stacked beside her. She looked up, froze, and dropped the pen. Oh my God! She was beside me instantly, taking in my torn nightgown, my bleeding feet, the paper clenched in my fist. Sit! Don't move! She returned with a first aid kit and gently began cleaning my feet. That's when I broke, real tears this time, not the practice ones. They were going to marry me today, I sobbed. He already killed 2 wives. She grabbed her phone. CPS emergency line. They answered, but their response was cold. 15. We need proof of immediate danger. A protective order based on claims isn't enough. Has she been physically abused? Ms. Alvarez's jaw tightened. She has glass embedded in her feet. Cuts everywhere. Self-inflicted injuries during escape don't qualify. We need evidence of harm caused by the family. My phone rang again. Ms. Alvarez answered it before I could react. Hello. Her face drained of color. Mr. Rahman, no. Your daughter isn't. My father's voice carried through the speaker. Calm. Polished. The voice he used in business meetings. She's unwell, he said smoothly. Mental health issues. She needs medication. We're very concerned. Ms. Alvarez ended the call. How did he know you were here? She asked. My phone. Of course. They were tracking it. Erase everything, she said urgently. Factory reset. Now. As I wiped the phone, she made call after call, supervisors, social workers, legal aid. Every answer was the same. Without immediate proof of family-inflicted harm, their hands were tied. Then we heard it. Car doors slamming in the parking lot. Ms. Alvarez locked the classroom door and pulled the blinds shut. Stay quiet. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. More than one. Men's voices, Arabic first, then English. We know she's here. My father's voice again. Her phone shows this location. She's sick. She needs help. The door handle rattled. A polite knock at first. Then harder. Ms. Alvarez whispered. I'm calling 911. I caught her wrist before she dialed. Wait. Let me try something first. I rolled up my sleeves, revealing the round scars left from being forced to grip scalding pots. Then I showed her the bruises forming on my arms from the struggle that morning, when my mother tried to shove me into the wedding dress. Finally, I lifted my nightgown just enough to expose the belt marks lining my back, evidence of years of punishment during those Friday lessons. Her hands trembled as she took photos with her phone. Why didn't you show anyone before? She asked softly. I thought it was normal, I whispered. Until I read your pamphlets. She called 911. There are multiple adult men attempting to force entry into my classroom. I have a student here who is in danger. Please send help. The pounding on the door grew louder. Then my uncle's voice cut through it. We brought her medication. She's bipolar. Schizophrenic. She lies. They're lying, I said urgently. Check the parking lot cameras. I came here alone. If they have medication, they brought it with them. She immediately called school security and explained everything. Mr. Harris, the head of security, said he was pulling up the footage. Sirens wailed in the distance. The pounding stopped. Footsteps retreated. By the time police arrived, my father had transformed. The furious man trying to break down a door was gone. In his place stood a composed, worried parent in an expensive suit, holding prescription bottles labeled with my name. Thank God you're here, he said calmly. My daughter is very ill. She has delusions, tells horrible stories about our family. The officers separated us. One stayed with me and Ms. Alvarez, while the others questioned my father and uncles in the hallway. She has never been on medication, Ms. Alvarez said firmly. I've taught her for 2 years. Look at her injuries. The officer glanced at my feet, the cuts, the bruises. Some of this could be self-inflicted, he said carefully. If she's experiencing an episode, check when those prescriptions were filled, I interrupted. If I'm so sick, I added, why am I not in any medical system? No doctor visits. No therapy. Nothing. Ms. Alvarez opened her laptop. I have her essays, she said. Months worth. She kept them all. Every paper where I'd hidden the truth between the lines. Writing about traditional cooking lessons when I meant burned hands. Writing about marriage preparation when I meant punishment for looking up. The officer read silently, his expression tightening with each page. Then Mr. Harris arrived, holding up his phone. The security footage clearly showed my father and uncle arriving together, prescription bottles already in hand. Anya, I said suddenly. Call Anya Suleiman. She reported this yesterday. She knows everything. Ms. Alvarez searched, then froze. They moved out of state this morning. No forwarding address. Her phone's disconnected. My father must have sensed the shift because his comm cracked. He began speaking rapidly in Arabic, gesturing sharply at my uncles. What's he saying? An officer asked. He's telling them to call the family lawyer, I translated, and complaining that the dowry can't be refunded. That did it. The officer's face hardened. "Dowry?" he asked. My father went still. I misspoke. "Your English was fine 5 minutes ago," the officer replied. The next hour blurred. More officers arrived. A CPS emergency supervisor. Someone from the district attorney's office. My father swung between threats of lawsuits and emotional pleas about family honor. My uncles argued religion and parental rights. But the evidence kept stacking up. The essays, the injuries, the fake prescriptions, the security footage, and the emergency protective order I'd filed that morning. "She's a minor with credible allegations of abuse and forced marriage," the CPS supervisor said finally. "We're placing her in emergency protective custody." My father exploded. He lunged toward me, shouting curses in Arabic. 2 officers restrained him as he screamed about betrayal and what happens to girls who shame their families. Ms. Alvarez held my hand as they pulled him away. Within 20 minutes, an emergency placement coordinator arrived, a weary woman named Patricia, clearly dragged in on her day off. She took one look at my feet and immediately called for medical transport. "These cuts need proper treatment," she said gently, helping me into a wheelchair. "The glass has to come out before infection sets in." Ms. Alvarez squeezed my shoulder. "I'll come with you. You're not alone." The emergency room was chaos. Saturday afternoon meant every bed was full. A nurse triaged me quickly, noting the glass embedded in my heel and the multiple wounds needing care. As she worked, Patricia stepped aside, already on the phone, trying to find somewhere safe to send me next. "Yes, I understand you're full," she said into the phone. "This is an emergency removal. Forced cultural marriage." A pause. "No, she can't be placed in standard foster care. She needs a specialized home." Every call ended the same way. No beds. No openings. No availability for high-risk cases. Ms. Alvarez paced the narrow space behind the curtain. "There has to be somewhere. I've tried safe houses. Women's shelters," Eleanor sighed. "Weekends are always hard. In cases like this," she lowered her voice, "families often try to retrieve the girls. We need somewhere secure." The doctor returned and injected anesthetic into my heel before carefully removing the glass. I clenched my jaw, not from the pain but from the fear. Every passing minute without placement was another chance for my family to find me. "Wait," Ms. Alvarez said suddenly. "I might know someone." She explained about a retired nurse who'd worked with the district before, someone experienced with emergency placements. Eleanor straightened. "Is she certified?" "I'll check." Ms. Alvarez stepped outside and came back a few minutes later with a small, hopeful smile. "Dorothy Hale. She's certified. She's handled cultural transition cases before. She can take her tonight." Relief washed over me as Eleanor started the paperwork. The doctor finished wrapping my foot and prescribed antibiotics. As we gathered our things, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You have shamed us all. This isn't finished." I showed it to Eleanor. She documented it immediately. "We'll change your number," she said. "And you'll need to stay off social media, anything they could use to track you." The drive to Dorothy's house took nearly 40 minutes, winding through neighborhoods, far from anything familiar. Ms. Alvarez followed behind us, refusing to leave until she knew I was safe. The house was simple but well-maintained, surrounded by a tall fence. Security cameras were mounted at every corner. Dorothy opened the door, a solid woman in her 60s with watchful eyes and gentle hands. She assessed my bandaged feet and exhausted face in one glance. "Come in, sweetheart. Let's get you settled." Inside was warm and quiet, nothing like the cold marble and gold of my childhood home. She showed me a small bedroom with a lock on the inside. "For your peace of mind," she said calmly. "The windows are alarmed, and there are motion sensors around the property. You're safe here." Eleanor finished the paperwork, while Ms. Alvarez helped me unpack my few belongings. Before leaving, my teacher pressed a card into my hand. "My personal number. Anytime. Day or night." That first night, sleep barely came. Every passing car made my chest tighten. Every shadow felt like an uncle or cousin waiting to drag me back. At 3 a.m, Dorothy found me sitting by the window. "They came for the last girl too," she said quietly, settling beside me. 3 brothers and their father stood right at that gate, demanding I return their property. She gave a grim smile. "Police response time here is under 2 minutes." I made sure of it. Sunday passed in a blur of planning. Dorothy helped me set up a new phone. Only she, Eleanor, and Ms. Alvarez had the number. We rehearsed scenarios. What to do if someone approached me. How to change routines. Which neighbors could be trusted in an emergency. "Tomorrow we'll enroll you in a different school district," she said. "Under the protective order, you can't return to Jefferson." The idea of starting over terrified me, but staying hidden mattered more. Monday morning brought the first test. At 6 a.m, the doorbell rang. The security monitor showed my aunt and 2 female cousins holding containers of food, faces carefully arranged with concern. "We know she's here," my aunt said through the intercom. "We just want to talk. Her grandmother is sick with worry." Dorothy didn't answer. She calmly called the non-emergency police line. "Yes," she said evenly. "The individuals named in the protective order are on my property." They left before the patrol car arrived, but not before one cousin held a sign up to the camera. "We love you. Come home." The manipulation had begun. That afternoon, Eleanor called with updates. "Your father hired a lawyer. They're claiming parental alienation and demanding your return." "Can they do that?" "They can try," she said. "But with the protective order and CPS involvement, it's unlikely. Still, you need to be ready." Tuesday brought flowers. A massive bouquet appeared on the doorstep with a handwritten card. "Our hearts are broken. Please forgive us. Love, Mama." Dorothy photographed the flowers and card before throwing them away. "Document everything," she reminded me. "Every message. Every attempt." I started at my new school on Wednesday, enrolled under special protections that kept my records sealed. The guidance counselor, already briefed, paired me with a student helper and offered the option to eat lunch in the library if crowds felt unsafe. "We've handled cases like yours before," she said gently. "Your safety comes first." But safety felt fragile when I spotted a familiar vehicle in the parking lot after school. Not my father's. He was too careful for that. But one of my uncle's work trucks sat near the exit, positioned so anyone leaving would pass it. I retreated inside and called Dorothy from the counselor's office. She arrived within minutes, parking directly in front of the truck and escorting me to her car while recording everything on her phone. "Let them know we see them," she said quietly, "and that we're not afraid." Thursday's mail brought court papers. My father was formally requesting my return, claiming I'd been manipulated by outsiders and was at risk of losing my cultural identity. Margaret connected me with a legal aid attorney, a sharp, unflinching woman named Renee who specialized in cases like mine. "Standard playbook," Renee said, scanning the documents. "They'll argue religion, parental authority, cultural preservation. And we'll counter with child welfare, documented abuse, and your testimony." "Will I have to see them?" I asked. "Not if I can help it," she said honestly. "But you need to be ready for that possibility." Friday morning, things escalated. Dorothy woke me early, her face tense. "Check your social media," she said. "Don't log in, just look." On a borrowed laptop, she showed me my father's public post. My photo sat beside a carefully worded plea. "Please help us find our daughter. She is mentally ill and requires medication. She has been taken by people filling her head with lies. We fear for her safety." Comments flooded in, prayers, shared posts, offers to help. Some even mentioned rewards. "This is witness intimidation," Renee said when we called her. "He's shaping the narrative." By afternoon, the post had spread everywhere. My image circulated in community group chats alongside warnings about the unwell girl who needed to be returned. Then came the first betrayal that truly broke me. One of the girls from my secret group, my younger cousin Layla, whom I tried so hard to protect, posted a video response. She sat stiffly beside her mother, eyes empty, words clearly rehearsed. "She told us terrible lies," Layla said flatly. "She made us afraid of our own culture. Please, if you see her, help bring her home so she can get help." I couldn't breathe. I knew exactly what pressure had forced those words out of her. Dorothy wrapped her arms around me as I sobbed. "They're weaponizing everything you love," she said softly. "That doesn't make you wrong." Saturday brought a stranger to the door. The camera showed a young woman holding an envelope. "I'm from a law office," she called. "I have documents for the minor child." Dorothy frowned. "Leave them in the mailbox." As the woman turned away, I caught her profile and froze. It was my cousin Nadia, 3 years older, wearing a wig and professional clothes. "Don't go out there," Dorothy warned, but I was already at the window. Nadia looked up, our eyes meeting. For just a second, her composure cracked. Then she placed the envelope in the box and hurried away. Inside were photographs. My grandmother, looking frail. My little sister at her birthday party, my chair glaringly empty. My mother crying as she cooked my favorite dish. Each image carefully chosen to pull at guilt. But the last photo made my blood run cold. Anya. She stood between her parents, an engagement ring on her finger. Her eyes were hollow. On the back, someone had written, "She came home. She's happy now. You could be too." "They brought her back," I whispered. "They're going to force her anyway." Renee swore when we told her. "This complicates things." "She won't recant," I said firmly. "Look at her eyes. She's terrified." "Fear doesn't matter legally," Renee replied. "Only testimony." Sunday's warning was more direct. A neighbor called to report men photographing the house from across the street. They vanished before police arrived. But the message was unmistakable. "We know where you are." "Maybe we should move her," Margaret suggested during an emergency call. Dorothy shook her head. "Running tells them they're winning. We stay. We document," she continued. "And we fight." Monday morning came too fast. The hearing for the permanent protective order. Renee had prepared me as best she could, but nothing could prepare me for walking into that courtroom. My entire extended family filled one side. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all watching me walk in alone. Community leaders filled the courtroom, dressed impeccably, watching me with expressions that blended pity and disgust. My parents sat in the front row. My mother dabbed her eyes with a tissue, the picture of quiet grief. I took my seat beside Renee, forcing my hands to stay still. My father's attorney opened, describing a loving household torn apart by foreign influence and moral decay. He called character witnesses, the imam from our mosque, longtime family friends, even my childhood pediatrician, who testified he had never observed signs of abuse. That's because I was never alone with him, I whispered to Renee. My mother always answered for me. When it was our turn, Renee presented the evidence carefully. Photographs of my injuries. Essays spanning years, documenting preparation for marriage disguised as tradition. Security footage showing my father arriving at the school with prescription bottles that were never prescribed. Then she called Ms. Alvarez. My teacher took the stand composed, though her hands trembled slightly as she spoke. She described noticing my weight loss, finding me reading legal pamphlets, and recognizing the warning signs in my writing. Did you ever report these concerns? My father's lawyer asked sharply during cross-examination. I tried to build trust first, Ms. Alvarez replied. I believe reporting too early would put her in danger. So you failed to follow mandatory reporting laws, he snapped. I reported once I had concrete evidence, she said firmly. After exposing her to anti-cultural propaganda, he countered. Renee objected, but the implication lingered. They were reframing my teacher as the instigator, the outsider who planted rebellion. When I testified, Renee kept me grounded in facts. The burns, the beatings, the girl's promise to older men, the deaths of Hamad Rahman's wives. These are serious claims, the judge said. Do you have proof these women died? The death certificates are public record, Renee answered. Both died of kidney failure before age 23. Both endured multiple pregnancies. My father's lawyer rose. Kidney failure is a medical condition. Unless counsel is accusing my client of murder. I'm identifying a pattern, Renee said evenly. Teen brides, rapid pregnancies, early deaths, and now, another minor intended for the same fate. The lawyer shouted objections. The judge called for order, but doubt flickered across his face. Without corroboration, without Anya's testimony, my word alone might not be enough. That's when the courtroom doors opened. A young woman entered, accompanied by a CPS worker. She wore a hijab and walked with a slight limp. Your Honor, the CPS worker said. This witness has information directly relevant to the case. My father stiffened. My mother gasped. The woman took the stand. My name is Samira Rahman, she said quietly. I was Hamad Rahman's first wife. Silence crashed over the room. I didn't die. Chaos followed. Objections. Whispering. Shock. I was 15 when I married him, Samira continued once order was restored. By 20, I had 4 children and my kidneys were failing. My family told everyone I died, but a nurse helped me escape. She had been in hiding for 5 years. I saw the post about this girl, she said, looking directly at me. I couldn't let him do it again. Her testimony shattered the room. She spoke of forced pregnancies, beatings when conception was delayed, families who chose reputation over survival. They preferred telling people I was dead to admitting I left my husband, she said. That's the choice girls are given, death or erasure. The defense tried to discredit her, but she had medical records, hospital reports, documentation of kidney damage, photographs of the fake grave her family created. When the judge ruled, his voice was firm. The protective order would be permanent. No contact. Any violation would carry criminal penalties. As we stood to leave, my father rose. You are no daughter of mine, he said in Arabic. You are dead to us. Sit down, the judge warned. But my mother stood too, removing her headscarf, a deliberate act. We have no daughter, she declared. She died today. Walking out felt like passing through flames. Relatives turned away. Some spat on the floor. Others muttered curses. Samira gently took my arm. You're not alone, she whispered. There are more of us than they admit. Outside, Dorothy waited with the engine running. As we pulled away, I saw my family gathered on the courthouse steps, my father shouting into his phone. It's not over, Renee warned quietly. They'll change tactics. She was right. Within days, the harassment took a new form. When direct contact failed, they adapted. My old social media accounts, long deactivated, were suddenly active again. Someone had broken into them, posting rambling messages about mental illness and desperation. Old photos were altered to make me look unstable, then circulated widely. Shops where Evelyn regularly bought groceries began turning her away. We don't want problems, one owner said quietly. You're housing that girl. Her family has influence. Then the legal pressure shifted. No criminal filings, civil ones. Defamation. Emotional distress. Alienation of affection. Every claim was hollow, but each demanded time, money, and energy to defend. They're trying to bleed you dry, Renee explained. It's intimidation through exhaustion. The worst part came through other girls. Videos surfaced online, cousins, family friends, girls I once tried to protect, describing how I had corrupted them. Their statements were eerily similar, rehearsed. She told us our parents wanted to sell us, one said stiffly. She made us afraid of our own families, another echoed. I recognized the fear behind their eyes, the coaching in their cadence. They were victims being weaponized. Security increased after footprints appeared in the garden one morning. The police couldn't prove anything, but someone had been watching. Witness protection might be an option, Laura suggested during a particularly brutal week. But I thought of Samira, 5 years in hiding. Of the girls still trapped. Running would mean abandoning them. No, I said. I stay. I fight. The next approach came disguised as kindness. A woman appeared at the door, claiming to represent a cultural reconciliation service. We help restore family unity, she said smoothly. Perhaps a supervised meeting. Evelyn closed the door, but pamphlets were left behind. Others followed. A therapist specializing in cultural reintegration. A religious mediator. Even a distant relative claiming my grandmother was dying. Every attempt was documented. Everyone refused. Still, they wore us down. Then Renee called. She wants to see you. My heart lifted and dropped. Is it safe? I don't know, she admitted. She has her own lawyer. The meeting was held at Renee's office, security present. When Nadia walked in, she looked hollowed out. Thinner. Slower. As if something inside her had fractured. They made me come back, she whispered. They threatened my little sister. I reached for her, but she shook her head urgently. They're done trying to bring you home, she said. Now they want to make an example of you. My stomach turned cold. I heard them talking, she continued. They mentioned your new school. Something about sending a message. When? Soon. Maybe this week. She gripped my hands tightly. Change everything. They've been watching. That night it escalated. Glass shattered. Footsteps. Men running. By the time police arrived, they were gone, muddy prints and broken windows left behind. We're moving you tonight, Laura said. This location is compromised. As I packed, I thought about Nadia's warning. About the address she'd slipped me. About the girls still believing they had no choice. I need to do one thing first, I told Evelyn. I need to make a call. I dialed Ms. Alvarez. Remember those pamphlets? I said, we need more. A lot more. They could move me. Threaten me. Hunt me. But they couldn't undo the knowledge already shared. Every girl who learned her rights was a victory they couldn't erase. The fight wasn't over, but as we drove away toward another safe house, I carried something stronger than fear. Proof. Proof that saying no was possible. That survival didn't require obedience. That a new life could be built after rejection. That message would spread, whether my family wanted it to or not. The new placement was 40 miles away. A small apartment above a retired officer's garage. He'd housed girls like me before. The security was tighter, motion sensors, cameras, panic buttons in every room. That night, I stared at the address Nadia had given me, another neighborhood, another cluster of girls who needed to know their options. Ms. Alvarez arrived the next morning with boxes of supplies. And we began again. We expanded the idea beyond simple flyers. These need to look ordinary, Ms. Alvarez said, spreading materials across the table. Not pamphlets. Guides that can hide in plain sight. We created information packets, disguised as schoolwork. Legal rights tucked into history notes. Emergency phone numbers written as math equations. Escape steps hidden behind study schedules. Even notebook covers that looked boring enough to avoid suspicion. We'll move them through school nurses, she explained. They're mandatory reporters. They know which students are at risk. While we worked, Renee called with updates. The break-in suspects were identified, she said. Fingerprints match distant relatives on your father's side. Warrants are out, but they've already crossed state lines. She paused, then added, your family has appealed the permanent protective order. They're claiming religious discrimination. Of course they were. The packets took 3 full days to assemble. Each one contained a concealed pocket with emergency contacts, legal explanations written in plain language, and a step-by-step plan for getting help safely. We made 50. We knew most would never reach their target. Confiscated, discarded, destroyed by parents who sensed danger and knowledge. But even one was enough. On Thursday, proof arrived. A social worker knocked at the door with a teenage girl standing beside her. She looked terrified, too quiet, too alert, like someone bracing for impact. She's from another family in your community, the social worker said gently. Her situation raised concerns. The girl wouldn't speak at first. Then when we were alone, she leaned close and whispered, I found your notebook. My heart stuttered. It was hidden in my cousin's room, she continued. The one with the math problems that didn't make sense. Her hands trembled. They said I'm promised to a man older than my father, she said. My period started last week. They said that means it's time. We moved fast. Protective custody. Medical documentation. Legal filings. Another emergency placement secured before nightfall. One packet had worked. Then another. Within weeks, there were more knocks. More girls. Different families. Same fear. Same silence breaking into whispers once they realized they weren't alone. The appeal stalled. The civil cases quietly collapsed under scrutiny. Public sympathy shifted as patterns emerged, too many stories that matched too closely to be coincidence. What they tried to bury became impossible to ignore. Months later, a local investigative reporter contacted Patricia. Then another. The story spread carefully, responsibly, without naming victims, but naming the system that protected abusers under the guise of tradition. Change didn't come all at once. It never does. But policies were reviewed. School staff were trained. Anonymous reporting lines expanded. And within the community, something subtle but irreversible shifted. Girls began asking questions. I moved again eventually, to a quieter place, far from familiar streets. I went back to school. Then college. Then training of my own, working alongside advocates who knew this fight well. Sometimes I still receive messages. Short ones. Careful ones. I found the math problems. Is this number still safe? Can you help? And every time I answer. Introduce my channel as the name of my channel is suggested reads. They tried to erase me. To make me an example of what happens when you say no. Instead, I became proof of what happens when you survive. And that knowledge, once shared, can't be taken back. If you found this story powerful and want more real-life tales that reveal courage, resilience, and the strength to stand up against injustice, make sure to subscribe to Suggested Reads. Every story matters, and every voice deserves to be heard.